Okay, welcome to part 3 of today's lesson. Once again, please make sure you have read the rites of passage and you've completed the reading log. Again, it is just necessary for you to get your head around those ideas and those notes before you before you watch this lesson. Hopefully you're all well, and let's carry on. So, we're going to look at Christian funeral rites. And again, just the first thing I want you to do is just have a look at these images, because these images give you an idea of how these practices occur, and hopefully should give you an idea of the beliefs that could be behind these practices. So I'm just going to circle some things I just want you to pay attention of and just note. And I'm just circling different elements of these different types of funerals that you just need to be aware of. Um, the building that they happen in, the clothes these people wear, the formality of the event, the symbolism of candles, the symbolism of flowers and wreaths, the symbolism of the cross, the symbolism of a priest, the symbolism and the purpose of being in a casket. All these things are quite symbolic, and it's just really important for us to be aware that in all these practices there are huge amounts of symbolism constantly scattered throughout all of these images and all these practices. And we just have to say to ourselves, well, what are the beliefs that are informing these practices? Why are they doing the things they're doing the way they're doing it? So we're going to start with a recall quiz. Yep. And all I want you to do is take a couple of minutes, maybe take about 7 minutes, 6 minutes. I want you to respond to these questions. Pause the video now. Okay, great. Here are your responses. Okay, brilliant. Again, if you get anything wrong there, go back and check the knowledge, check your reading log, and research the idea again if you have to. Just get your head around, these practices and what they mean and why they're significant, and making sure you've got the right response. Okay, let's move on. Now, we're just thinking about funerals today. And I just want you to start with a really simple activity. Looking at this image here, what can you see? And what can you feel? And what can you hear? And why are these times of sadness? So just thinking about, if you're there, if you're present at this event, at this funeral, what can you see? What can you feel? What can you hear? And why are these times of sadness? Okay, so I've just got some pictures of great sort of people here, people who have passed away. And my question for you to just think about, I don't want you to write this down, I just want you to think about it. But why do you think non-religious people are more likely to be afraid of death than religious believers? And what are your initial views on the afterlife? What do you think about it? Have you ever thought about it? Do you think about it? I just want you to take about 5 minutes to respond to those two questions there. Why are non-religious people more likely to be scared of death? And what are your initial views on the afterlife? Pause the video now. Okay, and if you've been on Instagram recently, you would have seen, I guess, the pallbearers. But I just thought I would include that in this in this section of the lesson. I want you to watch this clip. And really simple question: why might somebody want a funeral like this? What does it suggest about their understanding of death? Okay, so really interesting video there. And I guess the question is really, really important, actually. What does it suggest about their understanding of death or how they see death? Do they see it in the same way everyone else does? It's not very traditional at all in the sense of Western tradition. And so what does that tell us about how people view it? How those people view death? And so let's just go back and think about, what are the elements of a Christian funeral and what do these practices in themselves tell us about the belief? I'd like you to watch this video and I want you to focus on these two questions. What are the elements? What are the things that happen? What are the parts of a Christian funeral? And what do the practice tell us about the belief? What do the things they do tell us about what they believe? Watch the video, pause the video now. Okay, so these are some key elements that you should have picked out. Bible readings, prayers, hymns, eulogy. Get used to that word, eulogy, okay? Eulogy. It's almost like a silent E, eulogy. Burial, cremation, and the committal. These are absolutely key elements of a funeral. You must know what all of them are. You must be able to remember these. And in Christian and Protestant denomination, they may have slight variations in these basic key elements. So at Protestants, they may include some poems, some stories, some songs of praise, and there will be a committal where the priest says, he says the words, from dust you came and to the dust you shall return, ashes to ashes, dust to dust, in hope of resurrection to eternal life. And that phrase there is taken from scripture, where it is said that, when human beings pass away, they return to dust. They go back to dust. From the dust you came, to the dust you shall return. And I believe that's found in the Psalms. And in Catholic and Orthodox, they may include something called a Requiem Mass. That's a Requiem Mass. And that is a Mass for the dead. Now, Protestants will not engage in this in any way, form, shape or size because they believe that's biblically wrong and it doesn't fall in line with the teachings of Christianity traditionally in Jesus. And the Requiem Mass is where the liturgy begins with a prayer to God to grant the deceased eternal rest. And so there's this idea that you can still intercede when a person's passed away. So you can still pray for them to God for them to go to heaven or for them to go to a better place. Protestants do not have that idea. They believe once you're dead, and it's too late because life was where you had all the time to make all the decisions, and whatever decision and whatever state you passed away in, that's the state you would be in. For Catholics, they believe that there is they have a mass at the funeral, and it's referred to as a mass for the dead. Now, I just want you to go and have a look at the site at the bottom here, and it will just give you some information about what happens at a Christian funeral. Please pause the video and follow that link. Okay, great. If you're back, I want you to look at these verses. These are all different verses. And what do these verses teach us about Christian attitudes to death? In your explanation, link this to the practices they perform during the funeral. Link this to the practices they perform during the funeral. All the ones on the left-hand side, if you do all three, that's great. If you just do two, then I want you to do one from the stretch. And if you do all the stretch, then that's perfect. But I want you to at least look at three of these. I don't mind if you mix all the three up. But what do these verses teach about Christian attitudes to death? You are going to need this information because in your exam question, you are going to need this not just as quotes, but to highlight specifically what Christians believe. And specifically how those beliefs link to therefore what they do and the practices they have. And why they might have a Requiem Mass or why they might have a committal. Well, what in this phrase, what in these quotes is suggesting and leading to the idea that that's why they do what they do. So pause the video, take about 10 minutes, really take your time and go through these. Two simple questions. Tell us what it links, how the verses link to Christian attitudes on death. Link the teachings you highlighted or specific parts to specific practices they perform. Okay, really simple rapid mass feedback. This is true or false. So just take 30 seconds, 45 seconds, no more than that. True or false? Pause the video now. Okay, great. Here is the response. Go through it. Check you've got it right. Any bits that you've got wrong, anything you've got wrong, just go through it and have a look at it again. Okay. And that's it. And so the question therefore is, the most important part of a funeral service is the committal. So the most important part of the funeral service is the committal. I want you to respond to this question, create a plan. Please make sure you've read your reading log, because your reading log has lots of information on funerals from different denominations and traditions and how it happens and why it happens and why they do specific things the way they do it. Hopefully you've got some of those ideas from your video, from the videos and the lesson as well. And so the question is, is the committal the most important part? If not, why? If yes, why? What argument are you going to present? What would Catholics say? What would Protestants say? Make sure you understand the idea of Requiem Mass. Go and read about that in your reading log. Go and understand the idea of committal and go and understand why they say the words they do and sing songs, and go and get your head around the whole practice and the significance of each bit and each act, and then ask yourself, well, is the committal the most important part? Okay. Remember, you can use the writing frame. Once you've written your answer, use the checklist to check your responses, and then use the checklist to check your responses, and use the band divider to see what sort of band your response would probably fall in if you were to submit that. Make sure you submit your questions to me. All right, that's rites of passage done. This is the third topic, and therefore we are, and that's it. Remember, just go over the lessons again if there's anything you're unsure of, but get the question done. Make sure you get it to me. Always a pleasure, guys. Take care, and I'll see you soon.